Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Facebook Live from the Office of Admission at Texas Christian University. We are so excited that you are with us. We're excited that all of you are with us, including Michael from Saxe, Billy from Houston, Charles from New York City. I used to live in New York City. Katie from Frankfort, Illinois. We've got Hardy from Nashville and Ashley from Encinitas, which is down in the San Diego area. I'm from California originally. Love it. Love seeing everybody here and so many more. We have got a great session planned for you. This is the What's Next session. You've been admitted. What happens next? And this is really good for folks who have joined us who have been admitted to the university and are right on the precipice of joining TCU and want to know what these next steps are. Or even if you haven't been admitted yet and hope to be admitted in the future, what's to come? Maybe that is being admitted off of our wait list. Maybe it is being admitted a year or two from now if you are a student who isn't quite yet in the admission cycle. So there is lots to be learned here. We start all of our programs, as you know, if you've joined us in the past, with a land acknowledgement. This is a really special space that we are in. TCU is located on the ancestral homeland of the Wichita and affiliated tribes. And so we pay homage and respect to those who have lived here since time immemorial, in particular, the Wichita and affiliated tribes. And so the next time you're on campus, if you have an opportunity to check out the beautiful monument that we have erected between Reed Hall and Jarvis Hall, I would encourage you to do just that. Okay, you know that this is unscripted. We don't know what's going to be said. I don't know what Craig is going to say. Craig doesn't know what Emily is going to say. Emily doesn't know what I'm going to say. That's the fun of it. So we have some time. Please throw in your questions into the comment section in the chat. We will get to as many of them as possible. If they, in particular, are related to the steps that happen post-admission, that would be great. But really anything that you want to know about, we are here to help. So with that, I do want to give a couple of shout outs before we begin. There are 3 individuals assisting us who do not appear on the screen right now. They are Amy Peterson from TCU's Marketing and Communication Division, Rob Berline from Alumni Relations, and Liz Rainwater from the Office of Admission. They're making this all happen. We're just the pretty faces, let's be honest. Okay, so Craig Allen, I would love for you to introduce yourself, your role at TCU, and how you can help these fine folks who have joined us tonight.
Heath, thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. My name is Craig Allen. I am the Executive Director for Housing and Fraternity and Sorority Life. I have been on campus here at TCU since 2005 and worked primarily in housing, and a couple of years ago added fraternity and sorority life to my area of responsibility. Love being a frog and am happy to share all my knowledge. And I don't know about the pretty face part, but lots of knowledge. I'll give some knowledge.
All right. We love it when you drop knowledge, Craig. And Dr. Emily Ivy, thank you for joining us. And why don't you introduce yourself, your role, and the magic that you play here at TCU?
Magic feels about right sometimes. Thanks so much, Heath. My name is Emily Ivy. I serve here at TCU as a Director of New Student and Family Programs. So our office is going to encompass a lot of those onboarding pieces for our newest students. So our office is going to oversee our orientation program, our Frog Camp, extended orientation program. We're also overseeing Frogs First, which is our week of welcome. That kind of happens, you get moved in with Craig, and then just after that, we'll take you and get you onboarded a little bit more. So those are the 3 main components. Additionally, our office oversees our parent and family programming. So our goal here is to provide parents and family members of TCU students with the resources and knowledge to be able to support their student during their time at TCU. So that's a kind of big picture overview of our office. I have been here a little over 2.5 years. It's great to be a Horned Frog. I've really enjoyed those 2.5 years and certainly look forward as we onboard our next group of incoming students.
I can't believe it's been 2.5 years. In some ways, it feels like just yesterday, but also it feels like longer because of the tremendous impact you've had on the university. So that's really great. And by the way, I said Dr. Emily Ivy. I failed to say Dr. Craig Allen. My apologies, sir. having just earned your doctorate. So very well done.
No worries. Thank you.
Okay. Let's start with this. If I could have you both maybe just like brief overview. Craig, can you walk everyone through the housing process from this point forward?
Sure. So congratulations, you're an admitted student. I know when I do get to talk to prospective students, I like to highlight that, getting into TCU is a significant accomplishment in of itself. So let me start by congratulating all of you, and congratulations, parents and family, for your support in getting your student here to this point. The process from now is you'll have a tuition deposit to make. And as soon as that tuition deposit hits our records, you will get an email. We typically do them at this stage of the game about every week, saying we see you've deposited, and we give you just a little general information about housing and direct you to know that our housing application will open on May 1, and it will remain open until June 1. We will start sending those emails more frequently as we get closer to May 1. But yes, the next step in the process for those who've deposited is going to be to fill out that application anytime between May 1 and June 1. And let me emphasize, any time between. In fact, students can log in multiple times and look at the application and make changes to it if they want, and how they answer survey questions or hall preferences. The date at which you open and complete the application will not impact your housing assignment, at all, unless you don't do it before June 1. In that case, it could impact your assignment. But anytime between May 1 and June 1, and you are good to go for getting a housing assignment. So
Okay,
that's the very beginning, and that's the next step.
So if I complete the housing form on May 1 and Emily completes it on May 30th, it's not going to impact what assignment we get. It's going to be exactly the
not at all. Right. We will look at preferences, and obviously everyone can't get their first choice. The great news about TCU housing, I like to say, is that all of our choices will be first choices in most places. And so regardless of the building you live in, you're going to have an amazing experience, an incredible staff, great facilities, and a chance to find your fit at TCU.
Great. Okay. So then students have completed that form. And by the way, we make it May 1. We open that form on May 1 because we want students to have until May 1 to make their commitment deposit to TCU and not feel pressured into committing early to the university just so they can get the housing form in. So this is a very intentional process from a timing standpoint.
Yes. And students who are in the honors program, we have an honors hall. They will still fill out the application and list preferences. In any given year, the number of honors students might change. We anticipate we have the last several years been able to house all the first year honor students in Milton Daniel Hall. And so it is an expectation. The honors program will have to approve if a student is not going to be living in the honors hall. And I have to tell you, if you're an honors student, I don't know why you wouldn't want to be there. It's not just an incredible facility, but an amazing community. And the truth of the matter is, if you have friends who live in other buildings, you're still going to be interacting and seeing them. So why not live in that honors hall and take advantage of the programming that happens there for honors students? And we have great programs in all of our buildings, but if you're an honors program student, we really want you to be in that hall.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point. Worth underscoring. The expectation is that honors college students will live in Milton Daniel Hall. Okay. Emily, can you talk to us about, just give a general overview of then what comes next? The student has registered or completed that form. Now let's talk about the new student and family programs that our students are going to engage in and their families.
Yes, certainly. So once our students pay that commitment deposit or enrollment deposit, we kind of use that interchangeably. They'll have the ability immediately, ultimately, or within 24 hours to register and sign up for orientation as well as Frog Camp. So those are two different experiences. Orientations required for all of our students. For our first year students specifically, it is a 2-day experience, and we provide housing overnight. Students are required to stay with us on campus overnight between day 1 and day 2. Throughout that orientation process, it's a lot of the combination of building your community, some sense of belonging, some activities, interactions with upperclassmen as well as peers, and then learning some of the logistics of being a student here at TCU, as well as meeting with advisors, getting registered for classes. So very comprehensive experience with orientation. I do want to highlight, Heath kind of mentioned this, for our parents and family members, we welcome you to come to campus with your student during orientation. So we do have the ability to accommodate up to 2 guests per student. So students, choose your favorite 2 family members and bring them with you to orientation. Please make sure you add them to that registration form as soon as possible. Why that's helpful for us is because not only are we communicating with the students throughout this process, we're going to communicate with families as well. And so we just need to make sure that we have your family members' contact information. So even if you're not sure which family member is going to come with you, go ahead and add up to 2 so we can communicate, and you can always change that as we lead into orientation. A couple key things within orientation, we have 11 first-year sessions. So just choose whichever one works best with your schedule. There is this rumor that I would love to go ahead and dispel right now that you have to come to the first session to get all of the best classes. That is exactly a rumor. We will roll out some of our key core classes throughout the course of this summer. So there might be a class that's not available at the first session that does become available in the 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th session, just so we can be very accommodating to students throughout the course of the summer. So again, that's orientation. Choose the session. And then Frog Camp is our extended orientation program. It is purely optional, but very highly encouraged. And I think any student that has attended Frog Camp will tell you what a meaningful experience it is. So orientation is a lot of the nuts and bolts combination of your academic and social concepts, or kind of integration. Our Frog Camp is going to lean a little bit more into the community building and the sense of belonging components as we build that community and you make your way to TCU. There are a variety of different Frog Camp options. You can come here to Texas and participate in a local Frog Camp, and any Texas camp is free. You just got to make your way to the DFW area. Then we have a series of camps that we call destination Frog Camps. They are various out-of-state camps. Now, those do have a fee associated with them. So we have a couple of different options for Frog Camp as far as travel. We're going to Iceland this year, which is a really exciting experience. I think Heath and Craig would like to go, as would I. But we're going to let some others do that this year. So we're going to Iceland, our international experience. We have a couple camps called Alpine. Those go to Colorado. I got the opportunity to go on one of those last year. Really great experience. We stay in cabins. We do some hiking, some outdoor activities, but it's not like extra rugged. There's no tents involved in that process. You do have a cabin. So that's Alpine. We also have a mystery location. So if you are brave enough to just show up to the Dallas-Fort Worth airport and learn where you're going, when you get here, mystery is for you. And I cannot tell you where we're going. And people ask me every day, but I will not tell you. I will not let it be known, Craig. Don't ask. And then another opportunity we have is Nashville. That's another domestic location. So every Frog Camp has a little bit different flair, but the key intent and the core concepts are going to be the same in connecting students with their peers as well as upperclassmen. So quick recap. Family members, we want you to come to orientation. You cannot come to Frog Camp. That is kind of the first opportunity to let us care for your student before you send them to us long term as they move here in the fall. So that's kind of big picture. I see a couple of things that I want to address, some questions that have been asked. Specifically, there was one about Frogs First being required for all students. So Frogs First, there are certain components of it that are required for our students. They don't have to be at everything every day. So we've got orientation, kind of step 1, Frog Camp, maybe step 2, sometimes it's step 1. You can come before or after orientation. And then that third piece for us is Frogs First. So our various programs, we will communicate with the students regularly about what they're expected to be at, but there's also a lot of optional things they can come to. So our commuter students, we have specific outreach to those commuter students and letting them get a good understanding of what we're expecting them to be at. So that's kind of high level components, Heath, of some of those onboarding pieces.
That's great, Emily. And I'll just say, as somebody who has staffed Frog Camp before, I know Craig, you have as well. It is an experience that you don't forget. It crystallizes almost immediately why you want to be part of the TCU community. There is a sense of belonging that develops. And so many students walk away from TCU saying that the best friends they had were those they made at Frog Camp. So while it's not compulsory, most students, the vast majority of students do it. You probably have a more recent stat than I do. I always say it's about 80%. I don't know if that's right anymore, but I'm probably in the ballpark, and we would encourage everybody to do that. Okay, so actually you touched on something, Emily, in a comment you made about length of time students are staying on campus during orientation. I see a question that Jill Sawicki asks. It's specifically for orientation. How many nights are available for accommodation on campus? I think you said one night. But I'm wondering, because we do have families who travel from a pretty far distance. So how would that work? If you're coming from New York or North Carolina or Oregon, then how would that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we do not provide accommodations prior to day one. So we know that some families and students may travel here the night before we start on day one. They would be responsible for their own accommodations. I will say that our family members, if they would like to, are welcome to join us on campus for overnight housing. Again, that day one leading into day two, if they would like to. It is free of charge. So if you're looking for that kind of housing experience right here on campus, I know that a lot of families connect with each other when they're staying in that one night on campus. So that is a different residence hall than our students. So they are in different locations, but it's kind of a fun experience, I think, for some of our families to relive some college days within reason, of course, in our residence halls.
Great.
One thing I want to highlight as well, Heath, if you don't mind, we do have the ability. So there is a great calendar that our colleagues in the Office of Admissions have created that highlight orientation dates that lead into Frog Camp dates, or Frog Camp dates that lead into orientation dates. Our idea here is to make this a little bit easier for those that may be traveling a far distance to pair those together. If you happen to have an orientation that ends one day and a Frog Camp starts the next day, we're going to provide you housing overnight to accommodate that, or vice versa. If your Frog Camp ends on a Sunday and you come to orientation on a Monday, we're going to house our students during that overlap there. So I think that's an important and key distinction to know as well.
Hey, that is a really nifty calendar. You're right.
It is fantastic. Yes.
Awesome. Okay, Craig, I'm going to throw a question to you that RW Polly asked. If you already have a roommate, do you need to log onto the housing portal at the same time to get a room together? So generally speaking, how do roommates get connected?
Sure. Roommates will get connected by preferencing each other on their application. So there will be a place on the application where they can select their roommate. Sometimes students will say, I don't, because they have to go and type in their ID number or find them. So if a student perhaps is on the wait list or hasn't completed their housing application, they actually won't see them. But once the students, as they complete their application, they will be able to see who else is in our system, and then they can request that person as a roommate. So roommate requests need to be mutual. Each person requests each other, and then there is no housing portal for selection. We will assign students to housing. We changed that a few years ago. Last year, all first-year students, we assigned them. So students don't select rooms. They can preference communities, preference roommates, and we assign them.
Okay, wonderful. We have reached that time. You both know what time it is because you have both done this before.
Yeah.
It's time for dad jokes.
I've been waiting.
Have you been practicing?
Oh no, but go ahead. I may have one. Let's see what you got.
Okay. Why do crabs never share? Why do crabs never share? I bet Liz knows this. She's really good at dad jokes behind the scenes.
Yeah.
She's probably texting right now.
She absolutely got it.
She did?
She knows.
Because they're shellfish.
They don't
I like it. Well done.
Yeah. Good. Okay, great. Good job, Liz. Okay, next question. We got this on social media ahead of time from Bud Longhorn. Kind of an odd name for someone in a frog chat, but that's okay. Bud Longhorn, how does move-in work? Parking, getting items for the dorm, sign up for move-in time. This is I would call this an advanced question, and I like it. Craig, inquiring minds want to know, how does this all work?
These are people that sit in the front of the class that ask these questions because they're way ahead of the game. Move-in works absolutely amazingly, and we're going to talk to you all about it at orientation. Short story is this: we will assign students a move-in day and a move-in time. You come at that day and that time, and as long as all 2,400 of you can follow that, we're going to do really well. If people don't come at the time that we've given them, it's what do they call that? The fly in the ointment. That's just not a good thing. So we will assign it. As far as getting things for your room, go out, do a little shopping. Please consult our what to pack, what to bring list on our website. We also talk about that at orientation. And then if you want to, you can even ship things. We will have more information for you at orientation about how to ship things that can be delivered in your room when you get here. So it's amazing stuff, but much more coming on move-in dates in June.
I think I agree with you. Your team does an amazing job, and every year you will see some people are a little bit frustrated because maybe they don't get in and out in 30 seconds, but recognize we've got a lot of students we're trying to get through. But, and I think if you're sitting in your car and it's 100 degrees out, as it always is during the summer, there is that desire to try to get through as quickly as possible. But I am always amazed by how organized the process is from your team.
It's just a something that requires a lot of coordination. Because as everyone can imagine, if you have a building of 350 students and one elevator, there's a limited number of people who can get in and out and move at any one time. And we know how many people in every 15-minute increment can unload reasonably and get into their space. And so we space it that way. And that means, it means queuing everyone in a giant parking lot and then letting them get to their space to unload in that time frame. So it's a very well orchestrated thing, and it does work really well because we've been doing it for a long time. But we really do, we will go over the process in great detail and just ask that people respect and follow the process because that makes it better for everyone.
Right. Okay. The next question, sort of a two-part question, one for each of you. So the first one, this is from Christy Reed Huffman. What are the links to the legitimate social media sites to connect students and parents? That's an Emily question. And even if you don't have the actual links, but if you could just talk through that. And then the second question, Craig, you might be able to answer, are Chancellor Scholars immediately placed in Milton Daniel Hall, or do you place that on the housing application? So Emily, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, fantastic question, because we have some tremendous social media resources. As a starting point with our parents and family members, we kind of have two components. We have a Facebook page, conveniently called TCU Parent and Family Programs. That page is going to be our office sharing information with you. So we try and highlight any key things going on campus. Sometimes, Craig may have a Facebook Live that we're trying to highlight some of those things. And so again, that's us sharing out information. There's also a parent and family Facebook group. It is called Parent Association. That particular group, you do have to request entry into it. And you do need to know part of your student's TCU ID. That's to allow us to do our best to ensure those are only current parents and family members. So before you go ask to get in, touch base with your student and get that key piece of their ID if they're willing to share that with you. So you'll request to join that group. The page is us sharing information. The group is going to be more peer-to-peer interaction. So a lot of times people are looking for rides to airports, or they're maybe trying to figure out where to order a cake for their students. It's a lot of great just camaraderie in that group. So those are legitimate. And then I'm happy to announce we actually just launched Instagram for our entire office. So it is conveniently TCU _NSFP. That stands for New Student and Family Programs. So TCU _NSFP. That particular Instagram is going to allow us the opportunity to communicate with students as well as families collectively. Again, we just launched that little over a week ago. And so look for us there, a great opportunity for you to hear a little bit more as you prepare to onboard. Also, it's going to give us a fun opportunity to show some behind the scenes stuff, whether it's our orientation leaders or our Frog Camp facilitators. We're really looking forward to sharing those experiences with our parents, families, as well as our incoming students.
Thank you. Comprehensive answer. Appreciate it. Craig, Chancellor Scholars, do they automatically get placed in Milton Daniel, or how does that work?
Well, Heath, that's a great question. I'm hoping you can help me, because are Chancellor Scholars automatically in the honors program?
Oh, I should know that off the top of my head, shouldn't I? Let's assume they're in the honors college. So because if any Chancellor Scholars not in the honors college, then of course they wouldn't be necessarily, they wouldn't be living in Milton Daniel. So if the answer is yes, then
the answer is yes, then yes. Obviously, students have to apply for housing. If there is a honor student or a Chancellor Scholar who doesn't apply for housing, perhaps they're living at home in the local area, then no, they would not be automatically in Milton Daniel. But if they are part of the honors program, that's where they will be assigned. And I saw comments, where do any students perhaps try to meet each other and find roommates? We know that a lot of them do that on class Instagram or Facebook pages. Like there might be a TCU, what would this be? Class of 28? I don't even know. Page. I hear students go there. I would really caution people to avoid any other sites. Many of our students, 30, 40% or more will fill out the application and let us determine their roommates based on how they answer their roommate questions that we ask. So it's not necessary to find a roommate. It's very important to just go into this process being open to having a roommate and answering those questions honestly, because that's how we will match students. And while it's not a science, it certainly helps when students are honest with each other about what they're looking for in the relationship, how they expect to live with each other. And I will just share lastly that my best friend in high school, who I've known for years and years, does not necessarily translate to we can live well together. So it's very important that students think about that and talk about that before they decide to preference each other.
Yeah. Well, speaking of preference, this is just right on the heels of what you're talking about. AB Lashley asks, if our student goes to Frog Camp and meets a potential roommate after June 1, how is that navigated? Even so, after the questionnaire is closed, can students still preference each other, or is that off the table?
Well, unfortunately, when the application closes, it is in fact closed. We will have a process for room change requests after assignments are done. Unfortunately, we can't. At some point, we have to close things down so that we can do the assigning. If we leave it perpetually open to be changing, then we wouldn't ever get the assignments done. So students can request a change if they meet someone at Frog Camp, but the application will not be open. So yeah, that's how that would work.
I would also add that, and you all might not be aware of this, we work with something called Bright Crowd, and that is for deposited students only. So once you have submitted your commitment deposit, you can join us on Bright Crowd. That is increasingly a place where students find roommates. And that is a TCU only community, right? So that I would strongly encourage anybody who's interested to join Bright Crowd again once you've submitted your commitment deposit. Okay, Emily, this is a question for you from Cam Howie. I heard a rumor that some of the destination frog camps are already full. Is that true?
No, I don't like to lead into rumors and say they're true, but this one is an accurate statement.
So not a rumor.
Not a rumor. Some of them are in fact full, and that is kind of the nature of the situation on occasion. Now, as of earlier today, I do know that we have space for sure available on both Alpine A and Alpine B. It is the same experience, just one is before the other. So still great opportunities. Now, that actually leads into another helpful information point. When you log in after you've paid that enrollment or commitment deposit, you're only going to see orientation sessions and frog camps that actually have space at the moment in time. So if a camp or an orientation session is full, you're not going to see that as a possibility to sign up for. But something that's super helpful to know is we actually have quite a bit of movement. Students change orientation sessions, family schedules change, and they change frog camp sessions. So there is a waitlist opportunity. So if there is something that you are super interested in doing, first step, you have to sign up for at least a frog camp. So in this case, perhaps you sign up for one of the ones that's in the state of Texas. As long as you have signed up for one frog camp, then you can add yourself to a wait list for one of those others. So if you're like, I really want to go to Iceland, feel free to sign up for a Texas camp and then put yourself on that wait list for one of those other ones. We have less students that we're able to take on those travel or destination camps, so they fill quickly. Many of them are taking anywhere from 24 to 48 students, so that's not very many. Whereas our Texas camps are taking upwards of 250 students. So that leaves more of our Texas camps open. But if you can't make a destination camp, please come to one of our camps in the state of Texas. All of them are great experiences, as Heath mentioned. Oftentimes our graduating students will say the most memorable and impactful experience is going to frog camp. So please don't miss out on an opportunity because one of those other camps is full.
Okay, I'm going to ask this question and hope that both of you can answer it. Anna Elisa asks, does any of this differ for incoming transfer students? So from both of y'all's perspective, Craig, from the housing perspective, how does it work for transfer students? And Emily, for the programs that you supervise, how does it differ for transfer students? Craig, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so interestingly enough, for Annalisa, if she has deposited now, the housing application, I'm not sure the exact logistics, but if a deposit has been made, the housing application is actually open now to students who are not first year. So if she's coded as a transfer, she may in fact see the application available now. If not, she can ask us, but it will open May 1 regardless for all deposited new students. And as far as how else it differs based on where we will assign. Transfer students will be assigned to live in buildings that are for our sophomore and junior and senior students. First year students are assigned to first year student buildings we have designated as first year. And so, unfortunately for transfer students, there are limited numbers of those beds available. But I do anticipate that we will be able to help many transfer students who want to live on campus. And so the key is depositing, filling out the housing application, and then the only other way it's different is where they might go.
Wonderful. Emily, same question.
Yeah, certainly. I appreciate this question and apologize that we didn't hit this earlier. So our transfer students the starting point, go to any frog camp that works with your schedule. In fact, we have students, transfer students that I can see that are already registered for a variety of frog camps, whether they're in the state of Texas or destination camps. So choose whatever frog camp most interests you. As far as orientation, this is a pretty big difference with compared to our first year students. So orientation for transfer students is 1 day. So that's key point number one. Additionally, with our transfer students, you will have the opportunity to enroll in classes prior to coming to campus for orientation. So essentially, one of the next steps here in late April is what's called pre-orientation modules. These apply to all incoming students, first year as well as transfer. Those will open up. For our transfer students specifically, once you complete our pre-orientation modules, which we will notify you when they're available, you will be able to connect with an advisor. You'll be able to meet with that advisor virtually, get some advice, some insight, some planning for your degree. And then in early May, I cannot remember the date off the top of my head, is when our transfer students will actually be able to start enrolling in summer or fall classes. So that is a key difference. We really want to give our transfer students, we know that you have accomplished a lot of your requirements already. You have several credits, and we want to give you the opportunity to get in classes quickly that fit your needs. So you kind of, after our current students enroll, but before some of our first year students enroll, we know those transfer student needs are different. And so we want to do our best to accommodate and fill that need for you. So again, transfer students, a 1 day experience. Our first transfer orientation is on May 22nd. We have another one in June, and then we have a final orientation session for transfers in August as our admissions team continues to admit and our students accept those offers throughout the summer.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That's very helpful. Okay, Kara Holmes asks, since FAFSA is crazy behind, will there be any leniency in deadlines for those who don't know if they'll be able to afford TCU until that aid comes in? This is a great question because, as many of you know, there has been a significant delay in the rollout of the new FAFSA by the federal government. That has caused problems both for families who are attempting to complete the FAFSA, as well as the colleges, because the data transfer has been significantly delayed for us as well. Fortunately for our families, TCU also requires something called the CSS profile. And the data that's collected on profile is actually quite a bit more robust than the information that's required to be captured on FAFSA. And so with the information we have obtained through profile, we have actually been able to give out financial aid awards. So if you submitted profile to TCU, then by this point, and you've been admitted, by this point, you should have received a financial aid package from us. If you have not, certainly check with the financial aid office to make sure that all of the documents that are required have been submitted and received. All that the FAFSA is going to do at this point for us is verify what kind of aid you might be eligible for. So we might say, based on the profile, we believe that your need is, and I'm just making this up, $30,000. And so we are going to award you a grant or a need-based scholarship that is worth $30,000. The FAFSA might say, you qualify for a Pell Grant. So you will then receive an itemized account of that $30,000, say $5,000 is in a Pell Grant, and the remaining $25,000 is coming from the institution. But the bottom line remains unchanged. So while you may be waiting on financial aid packages from other institutions, you should know now if TCU is affordable, and therefore our commitment deposit remains May 1st. I imagine that there may be some scenarios where we might be able to provide an extension, but by and large, we would anticipate that our families would notify us by that May 1st deadline. Okay, let's move to the next question. And Reagan Husher asks, how does room selection on June 20th work? So Craig, if maybe you can go into a little more detail. You talked about the housing application ending June 1st, and then there's an assignment that will be made afterwards. But how does that actually, like mechanically, how is that all taking place? How do students find out?
Yeah, Reagan asks a great question. The good news is that we made the change a year ago, so it's not so much room selection as it is room assignments. And the reality behind this is because our team, because at TCU, you are not a number. You are not just a series of things that we enter into a computer system. Our staff spend a lot of time. It's some semi-automated, but they will take the information given by students about preferences, preferences for roommates, preferences, how they answer survey questions, preferences for hall communities, and then they'll start assigning in batches. But then they do this extra kind of quality control check where they go back and they say, all right, we just did this automated run and assigned a couple hundred people. Let's, let's check it and make sure that it looks like it's doing what we want it to. And did it honor Reagan's preference or did it miss something? And so we take a great care to do this. And that's why it takes time, which is why we close the application June 1, give our staff time to do this, troubleshoot. Milton Daniel are all assigned. We also have our assignments team at the same time. There's kind of what we would call our general student body. We have programmatic spaces that we have to work with our partners in athletics, ROTC, a few of our other scholarship programs. We have to work with our Office of Student Access and Accommodations to make sure that we've also taken care of any student that had one of those special qualifiers and taken care of those and met their needs, in addition to looking at all the other students and their preferences and what they hope for in housing. So it's somewhat automated, but we take great care to do it, pay attention personally and make sure that we get it right. But all students have to do is sit back and wait for us to say the assignments are done and then go see what their assignment is. Students will not have to go in and log in and look and select anything. We've eliminated all that pressure. And so it is simply assigned. And I know someone asked, is it first come, first serve? It's not first come, first serve. It's automated. And so at some point, first preferences might not be available, but we randomly grab groups of students. Our system, when it does the automated, it just randomly grabs a group and puts them in, and then we check it, and that's how it works. So there's nothing that people ask, what do we need to fill out in order to get our best chance at our preferences? The answer is there's nothing to do. And it will all be done for you, and you will log on and see your assignment.
Wonderful. Yeah. Okay. We're past time for another dad joke. So I hope you've been gearing up over the last 20 minutes. Okay. Why did the dad not trust stairs? Why did the dad not trust stairs?
Somehow the word step has got to factor into this.
You're thinking along the right lines.
He didn't trust them
because they're always up to something.
They're always up to something.
Yeah.
You are so right.
I'm not wrong. I don't lie. Okay. Next question, Emily, I'm going to throw this to you. Michael Morris asks, my student is currently scheduled for one of the first orientation sessions. However, he won't know the final outcome of his AP test scores till after that orientation. Do advisors and students just avoid signing up for the courses for which these tests might fulfill the requirements? So can you talk about advising at orientation and specifically how, if you know the answer to this one, how it might work out?
Yeah. Ultimately, the answer is going to be they're going to try and avoid and adjust later. So this happens pretty frequently, especially for our early sessions, because we have 3 sessions that occur before we even get to June. So this is pretty common. Our advisors are likely to ask you how you think you did, And this is where you're honest and open about how you think you did, because if you're not honest, it doesn't go so well sometimes. So oftentimes we may put students in a particular course and wait for the AP score, or we may avoid a course around that particular subject, because while students craft their schedule, they will walk away with the schedule. They're going to have the opportunity to make changes to that schedule kind of throughout the course of the summer as necessary. But more specifically, once students get started here, we'll have a week where students will be dropping and adding classes and adjusting their schedule, whether it's an AP score has come in, or maybe they decide they don't want to take an 8 o'clock and they would prefer the 9:30 section. So there's a lot of flexibility in that. And I think that's one of the key things to know is there is no grand perfect schedule in the world. You're going to walk away with a schedule that meets the requirements of your degree plan. We're going to make adjustments as we need to. So even though you may not walk away with like a perfect schedule, you're going to walk away with a schedule. We're going to get the opportunity to make changes to that throughout the course of the summer and leading in that first week of classes. So again, the AP scores, we're probably going to try and avoid a subject area if possible, but that's going to be an independent conversation during your group advising and orientation. But that's a very, very common situation we face.
Great. Thank you. Craig, Lisa Wright asks, are there more than 2 students in a dorm room? So can you describe the different options that first-year students might, I say options, not that they have an option to choose, but what are the different possible outcomes for our incoming first-year students?
It's a great question. And the answer is sometimes there are more than 2. We have rooms that are built and designed as triple rooms. We also, depending on our class size, may have some students living in what we would call a triple room with shared amenities, meaning they may have to share a closet or another piece of furniture. We try to pick only rooms that are large enough for 3. And let's keep in mind that even a traditional double room might be 14 by 17 and have 2 students in it. So a slightly larger room we know can accommodate 3, but it's going to be different and students will need to learn to share and get along. But what we find is that students, regardless of how many students are in the room, when they get to know their roommates and the other students that they live with, they're going to have a great experience and have a lot of fun. We do have some single occupancy bedrooms that are in suite style halls. They have become popular in the last couple of years, but it's important for people to really think about that. I have many students and families who at the end of their first year will say, I wish I would have lived with a roommate and not in a room by myself. There's a certain amount of, if you are a person who is inclined to want to hole yourself up and maybe not get out there as much, I would encourage you not to put yourself in a situation where that is easier to do. The beauty of coming here to college and living with other students just like you is the amount of personal and academic growth that you can experience having a roommate and having 2 people across the hall and getting to know those other students. It's just a time unlike any other that you will have wherever you live after this. There will never be anything quite like a college room experience and roommate experience.
Thanks, Craig. I just want to point out that if you're in a room where you have to share furniture, you will not be sharing a bed.
Oh,
every student will have their own bed.
That's correct. And we sometimes have people who, and dresser, everybody has their own bed, their own dresser. We have sinks in our rooms. Students can obviously share a sink. Closet space is the thing most commonly. Desks sometimes, because interestingly enough, what we find is about 50% of our students in any given year will tell us they just don't use the desk. Female students, if they do use it, tend to use it as a makeup stand and where they sit down and do makeup. And that's fantastic. But many students just don't sit at a desk to study the way maybe I did or others did, and parents sometimes have a hard time wrapping their head around it, but I promise you, students do not.
And our library is unbelievable, and there's so many study spaces in there.
Absolutely.
That's a really, really common place for students to
And there are study spaces in all the residence halls as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, that's very important.
Okay. Well, actually, that, as we're talking about sort of room dimensions, there's a question that Christy asks: are there room and furniture dimensions on a website somewhere so that we can plan on supplemental cabinets, et cetera? Or is that information that at some point is going to be disseminated to families?
Christy and others, please go to the Housing and Residence Life website, housing.tcu.edu. And I'm looking at that page on my other screen. And not only will it have dimensions, you can see what a room looks like unfurnished. There's a measuring tool. You can measure it for yourself and know exactly the size of the windows. If you want to bring curtains, please don't attach anything to a wall. Use a suspension curtain rod. But yes, you can measure, and there are also lists of common dimensions, and it's all on our website. Virtual tour for, I think now, every single residence hall and room type. It's pretty cool.
Awesome. Okay. Gloria asks, if my address exceeds a certain distance from the campus, is my daughter required to live on campus, or can she still commute? So how does that work for families who live in the area, Craig?
We use the within 30 miles. There's really no rhyme or reason to that, other than if it's much further than that, we're really going to encourage you to think about that carefully. For every hour of a day that a student spends on the road, that's an hour they're not spending studying or working if they need to work, or getting to know other students. And if you're beyond 30 miles from campus, that number of hours per week is going to add up pretty significantly. So we would not encourage it, but we'll entertain it at if it's more than 30. Generally, if it's less than that, we won't question it. But all students, regardless of where their home address is, are able to apply for housing, and we will provide it as best we can.
I can tell you, as somebody who lives more than 30 miles away from campus, I spend a lot of time in the car. So I agree with you. If we can make it work, definitely try to do that.
I am 17 miles from campus and would not let my kids commute.
Okay. Emily, this is a question for you. Keaton Patel asks, my student will be having foot surgery and cannot be weight bearing for 8 weeks. Can Frog Camp accommodate a student in a wheelchair?
The answer is yes. Now, we do encourage you, and I would like for you to reach out to us directly so that we can plan accordingly for that. So just if you'll start with an email, Keaton, our email address is just frogcamp@tcu.edu. Give us an opportunity to plan for that, but we will accommodate any needs that a student has. I know that there are sometimes those physical limitations, and just give us the chance to do some great planning with you and get an understanding of the needs that you have. Again, that email address is just frogcamp@tcu.edu. You can say, I saw Emily on this Facebook Live and she said to reach out, and we'll touch base and coordinate that for sure.
Wonderful. And I imagine there are going to be certain frog camps that are probably more amenable than others, right? Alpine might be less attractive to the student.
Absolutely. And we want to get an understanding of what the student desires along with the needs of the student and put those together to make sure that you're signing up for a camp that meets both of those aspects.
Excellent. Something that we haven't really touched on, but I'm curious to know from both of your perspectives is about fraternity and sorority life and how that fits into move-in and how it fits into orientation and Frog Camp. We know, and for those who joined us last month, the session was Brooke was on, and she did, and as well as students, and we had a fabulous session. Specifically, especially with Panhellenic, which has a highly structured recruitment process, and do those women move into housing at that time, et cetera? But really for any of the councils, how does that all fit? So Craig, maybe you can start.
Yes. Panhellenic is going to be the one that will have the most impact on move-in. And we have a day and we will ask on the housing application, are you planning to or considering sorority recruitment, Panhellenic sorority recruitment? And very much encourage students to check yes. Even if you decide you're not, that's later, that's fine. You're not committed to doing it. But if you think you will, please mark that on your housing application. We will use that information when we do move-in days and time slots. So there's a Saturday, roughly a week and a couple days before classes start, when any student who is participating in recruitment, sorority recruitment, Panhellenic recruitment, will be assigned a move-in time. It could be any time from roughly 7:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m., but they will move in on that day because recruitment will begin the next day, in-person recruitment. There's actually an online component for recruitment that happens earlier that week. For that reason, I hope I'm not speaking out of line for what Emily would agree. We would really encourage any woman considering Panhellenic recruitment to do orientation and frog camp in June or July. It is something that we will still try to accommodate if August is when you want to do those things. But what I like to say is maybe don't overdo it if you have an opportunity to space those things apart. It really, I think, makes for a better experience for everything, frog camp, orientation, and recruitment, if you can separate those two.
Yeah, that's a great point, Craig. The preference is if our students have the ability to do an orientation or frog camp in June and July. We understand that is not always going to be the case. So thankfully, here at TCU, we have great relationships all around with staff and offices on campus. So we do have students, specifically some of our sorority women, who are kind of doing a frog camp and an orientation and recruitment all at once. I will say it can be a little tiring. So again, if you can do it differently, we recommend it. But we will work together. We work with Fraternity and Sorority Life to make sure those students are not missing orientation programs. Additionally, there is one frog camp that ends literally the morning of sorority recruitment beginning in the afternoon. So it makes for a busy day, but we've done that very strategically to help our individuals that want to participate in all of those components.
Yep.
One other thing I'll add is during orientation, there is a session specifically by our Fraternity and Sorority Life team that occurs in the morning of day 2. So no matter what area of Fraternity and Sorority Life you might be interested in, that is for you. It is a great opportunity to learn about the different councils, about the different opportunities available.
I should add, because it just occurred to me that is, so the most direct potential thing to consider is for women doing the Panhellenic recruitment. For men going through IFC recruitment, many of the men's organizations will hold summer events, and some of them hold them in Fort Worth. We oftentimes have students who come to an orientation or a frog camp and then want to also attend a fraternity event in Fort Worth. And it is very important for you all to understand that if you want to do that, you cannot leave orientation or frog camp to go do that event, even if it's 2 hours on an afternoon. Once you're here for orientation, you need to be here for all of orientation. The moment you check into a frog camp, you cannot leave frog camp to go participate in a fraternity event during that span of time. So please, I know sometimes fraternity men are interested in recruitment, try to double dip on that, but please understand you cannot do that. We will not allow that.
Great. Well, listen, the hour has flown by. We got to a lot of questions. We covered a lot of ground. I appreciate you both very much. Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Emily. I just want to mention one other thing, because I know that we have folks joining us who may be waiting on an admission decision. Perhaps you were placed on the wait list. We anticipate reaching out to you within the next week just to assess your continued interest level in TCU, so that if we choose to go to the wait list, we know sort of who are the most eager folks to be admitted to TCU. So be on the lookout for that communication from the Office of Admission. As I said, that will be forthcoming here in the near term. In the meantime, thank you everybody for joining us. We hope that it was a fruitful session for you, and we'll be back again in the future. So as always, go Frogs.
Frogs.
God.